Welcome, welcome, welcome everyone to our new amazing live session. Today we have an exciting topic that I think a lot of you will find really interesting to discuss and to hear about. We are going to talk about whether you should use the first language of your students in class, whether knowing the first language of your students is going to help you in teaching them, and everything related to this. Our guest speaker today is Elborg Nopp, and a little bit about her later. So, if you have any questions, if you have any ideas or comments or stories that you want to share, of course, as always, please write these things in the comments. This is me, Polina Węglowski, your usual host of these live sessions, and I'm really happy to see you all here. So, first of all, let me give you a little background about what Amazy is, as I always do. Amazy.uk is a digital workspace for modern educators. This is a place where you can find thousands of ready-to-use digital interactive materials that are easily customizable. You can save them, share them with the students, or you can create your own materials at a snap of fingers. We have 16 tools to create these materials and a fantastic AI assistant to help you save time and create tailor-made courses and lessons for your students. Our today's speaker, as I said earlier, is Elborg Nopp. And Elborg is a certified language teacher and coach specializing in helping Spanish professionals overcome stress and build confidence in English workspace communication. Elborg has a very interesting background, and she's fluent in German, English, and Spanish. And also, she has 30 years experience of living and teaching in Spain. And also she founded Trust Your English to help professionals leverage existing language skills and improve pronunciation and eliminate workspace communication anxiety. So let's everyone welcome Elborg here. Hi.
Hey, good morning.
Morning. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm so pleased to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming. So, the first question I really wanted to ask you was about your background because you're fluent in German, Spanish, English, and you also mentioned that you have been traveling around when you were growing up. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Guys, I think that's a big part of what influenced the way you work today and the way you approach teaching. So, can you share a little bit about this kind of moving when you were growing up? What was that?
Sure. So I was born in Austria, and I am Austrian by nationality.
Okay.
When I was 1 year old, my parents and I moved to Mexico, where I lived about 3 years. And then we had a brief interval in Germany. And next, when I was about 6, we moved to Athens in Greece. That's where I started to go to school, to German school, though. Because my native language is German. Yeah. After that, we moved to Indonesia, Jakarta, and I continued my schooling in at the German school there. And then I spent quite a few years in Germany, near Frankfurt, and I went to university here as well. And then I decided to, leave Germany behind, and I moved to Spain.
Yeah. And so how many years did you live in Spain? 30 years?
I spent
30 years.
Years there, kids and all that. Yes. And that's why I continue teaching Spanish people, because that's it. I guess it's my comfort zone.
Yeah, no, I get that.
Yeah.
Living in Greece and Indonesia, did you also pick up those languages?
Yes, I did. Yeah, not to the same degree as Spanish or English, obviously. I also studied French at school, and I feel I would be able to progress very quickly here. Yeah.
Well, a true polyglot.
Sort of.
Can you still speak a bit of Greek or?
Not a lot, just a tiny bit. Yeah, no, but again, it's something that I would be able to brush up faster than if I had to start from scratch. Yeah, and I've been dabbling with some Greek on Duolingo, as you do.
As one does.
I can read everything.
What's your current streak?
Sorry?
What's your current streak?
Well, I don't never had any streaks.
No,
I
no
can't
streets.
say that. But yeah, I can read everything in Greek. I don't know what I'm reading, but I can read it. I don't understand it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, we have a few people coming here. So we have a person from Vienna, uh, from Austria. So
Okay. I was born in
yes.
Linz, not in Vienna, although my mother's family lives in Vienna.
Oh, I've been there actually. I was traveling through Austria when I was doing my road trip, so I stopped, had a little stopover there. It's nice, nice
Yeah,
place.
it's kind of, yeah.
Yes, and we also have Oksana Yakubova. Hi, Oksana. Good morning. Okay, so I have a lot of questions prepared for you today and a lot of things we're going to discuss. And I think we can basically divide this into two different sections. The first one is if knowing your students' first language helps you with teaching them, and if using your students' first language in class is something that is acceptable, something that we should do, or something that is a no-no kind of thing. So another thing that you mentioned and I really liked is this kind of quote, any kind of learning is connected to struggles, and that kind of resonated with me in different ways. So can you elaborate on that a little bit? What do you mean when you say that learning is connected to struggles? Should it be all fun and games and relaxing and
It should be as fun and relaxing as possible, but still there is a lot of effort implied.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
involved. You really have to work hard if you want to learn any kind of thing. Last weekend, I was watching the figure skating, ice skating championships, and oh my goodness, uh, the things that they do and the work that is behind this. And it goes for everything that you want to learn and learn well, if possible. So
That's true.
yeah, that's one of the reasons behind why I push students to use English as much as possible. You know, stretch their comfort zone a little bit,
Hmm.
make an effort.
Yeah.
So it's not just, you know, spoon feeding them everything in their own language. They have to try and speak
Hmm.
actively at any level.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And that's, I think, this is why many teachers adhere to the approach of never allowing the use of L1 in class. Is that, well, you have to overcome these obstacles. You have to overcome your own insecurities, and just like if you don't know what to say, go around it, and then, oh, I don't know what you're saying, and you pretend that you don't know what your students say. And this is why a lot of people go to native speakers for learning as well, because, well, they don't know my language, I will have to, no matter what, speak English. Does that help? Is this something that really helps students, or is this something that can cause different problems?
Of course, it can cause problems. There's a fine line between knowing how much they can really do and still feel they are kind of in control, because there is an element of losing control and
Hmm.
feeling, you know, lost in a large ocean and not knowing where to turn and what to do. So
Hmm.
yeah, you have to be quite sensitive to that as a teacher or a language trainer and see where the positive impact of using L1 ends and where
Hmm.
they need, you know, you need to throw them a lifesaver from time to time and use their
Yeah.
language. Just, you know, when it comes to defining words that are tricky to, how do you define words like meanwhile? You can, it's hard. I mean, you can use them in example sentences, obviously, but
Yeah.
sometimes it's
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
more efficient to give them a quick translation and move on.
I don't know. I guess some people may say that this is a question of skill. Like, get better at defining, get better at explaining,
Yes.
practice more as a teacher. And if you can't define or explain a word in simple terms, then it's your problem, not your student's problem. So, there is one thing that I have heard people say.
Okay, I think I have the privilege of teaching homogeneous groups of people, or I've hardly ever, only very rarely, had a group where somebody did not speak Spanish.
Mhm.
So I think that's an advantage for me because I
Yeah.
can resort to Spanish when necessary. But other
Mhm.
teachers who have mixed groups or, you know, mixed L1 students. It's true. You
Yeah.
cannot, it's not so easy. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, of course, of
thinking
course.
that.
If you have a mix of people from different cultural
Exactly.
backgrounds, this is going to be really hard to navigate. So you will have to, of course, just use English. This will be your sort of lingua
Exactly.
franca
That's right.
for that. Okay, so while we are discussing these questions, I also have a question to the audience today. Let's see, what kind of approaches do you adhere to? What kind of things do you agree with? If you're listening to us right now, so can you write in the comments what approach do you agree with, and if possible, why this is what you have chosen to use? So, number one, you never use your students' first language in class. Number two, you sometimes use it with low levels, for example. And number three, you use it whenever you think it is needed with low levels or higher levels. So, please write in the comments number one, number two, or number three so that we know what kind of different opinions we have here with us today. And also, if possible, can you also write why you use this approach? So while we're waiting for people to share their thoughts on this, let's get back to this question. What would you say to teachers who believe that English only is the best approach? So, in what cases, I guess, if I can paraphrase this, do you think it is a bad idea to stick to using English only?
Is that a question for me, Paulina?
Yes, yes, sorry.
Yeah. I would say English only is one approach. It's not necessarily the best approach.
Yeah.
The second part of the question was, when is it not advisable?
Yeah. When is it not advisable to stick to English only?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, I can talk about this for hours. um, the way I use English is strategic. First of all, as I said, to save us time and also mental energy
Hmm.
when giving explanations. And you give an explanation in English, but you see people's faces, blank faces, doubtful expressions. And after checking, people usually say, yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you explain it then in Spanish, you can really see their faces relax or light up. It's like,
Hmm.
oh, I see. Now I understand. In particular for adults, I think it is very important to be really sure what something means,
Hmm.
also expressions, and then they will
Yeah.
go, okay, but then what does that mean exactly in
Yeah.
Spanish? Because they want to be absolutely sure
Yeah.
that they understand something so that they know they are not going to, that they're going to use it correctly.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
So sometimes
so basically,
they request
yeah.
a Spanish explanation.
So we can draw from this basically two situations when your students are getting into this sort of danger zone. And I don't know if this is like a common thing or is something that I encountered during my training as a teacher. There are three basic zones where learning happens. There is comfort zone, then you go outside of your comfort zone, but then the third one is the danger zone. And
Yeah.
learning happens outside of your comfort zone, but it stops when you approach the danger zone. So, danger zone is where students feel anxious, insecure, when they panic, when all thought processes are blocked. And I think if you push on sticking to English only in situations where students are just not getting it at all, it brings them into the danger zone.
Of course. And then they shut down and
Yeah,
learning will not happen then,
yeah,
or it's very difficult then.
yeah. So as teachers,
Um,
we have to be very sensitive to this
okay.
kind of changes in your students.
Absolutely. I remember last year I had a group of A2 level students, and they were so intimidated by English and frustrated. And they said, "We've had so many bad experiences. We are." Oh my goodness! I really felt for them, and they needed a lot of scaffolding and
Yeah,
hand holding in Spanish from time to
in
time.
Spanish.
And
Yeah,
that's when you see them relax. And but
yeah.
I think many of my students and clients have experienced communication breakdowns in real life. and that's a horrible situation.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable, and I think they dread that. And
Hmm.
to know that, okay, I'll do my best to speak English with my teacher, but I know that if everything fails, I can always resort to Spanish. It gives them a sense of security.
That's true. That's true. And this is a recurring theme that I've heard from a lot of people coming from, non-English speaking backgrounds, trying to learn English, is that a lot of them have been traumatized in some
Yes,
way or another by their
absolutely.
learning experiences, and they come to you with these wounds, these scars, really anxious about how this is going to go, and us creating the safe space for them where it's okay to make mistakes, it's okay to say something in your first language, to ask for a translation if you don't get it, is an important
Another
thing.
very important aspect of using Spanish is when I coach. I'm also a language coach,
Hmm.
and this goes into the field of emotions. And not every student is has the capacity to express themselves authentically about
Hmm.
how they feel about English in their in English.
Hmm.
Even higher levels sometimes need to vent and to tell me about their experiences, and then they will naturally sometimes
Yeah.
slide into Spanish.
Yeah, this happens. And so basically, um, going back to these two different situations where this happens, right? So if students are not getting it, we can translate something to them, because basically, if you keep pushing over, you're just going to waste time. They're not going to get it. Everybody's going to get frustrated and not feel safe. And so just translate it and move on with it. And another thing is when they want to make sure they got it right. When you did use definitions and when you did use, synonyms to explain something and they got it, but they want to make sure. And that's just what a lot of my students also feel.
Definitely.
They want to do that, right? Especially because I think when we had our previous conversation with you, we mentioned that a lot of words will have the same translation in their native language, but a different meaning. And you gave me an example of Spanish.
Yeah, that was the
What
verb
were two words?
esperar.
Yeah.
Esperar is a verb that derives from three different nouns. One is
Hmm.
esperanza, which is hope. The other
Hmm.
one is expectativa, expectation. And the third one
Hmm.
is la espera, wait.
Hmm.
So, but the verb is the same in all three cases. And obviously, then, not obviously, but there is a fourth one, which esperar is also used to express look forward to.
Oh, okay.
Yes,
Okay. Yeah, so we
exactly.
have wait, expect, hope, and look forward to. Four
Exactly.
different concepts. Very similar though, but
They are
very
related.
concrete meanings, very distinct kind of things.
And just yesterday, I had somebody's. We were preparing a presentation together, and she said, "Okay, well, we hope this will take 3 months before we can do the next step." And I said, "I don't think you hope so, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
probably expect so." Yeah,
Expect. Yeah.
so it's
So I guess
important.
this is one case where just translating won't work. So,
Exactly.
and this brings us to, should you know your students' first language? But before we move on to that, let's take a look at some of the answers we have from the audience. So, we have one here: in mixed first language groups, even extremely beginner groups, I do remain in the target language only, which is, yes, as we said, you probably don't have another option there.
That's it.
Right. But maybe what I would do in this case, and tell me if you agree or disagree, I would allow my students to use dictionaries or look things up online. I would not restrict that at all.
Of
Like
course
I
not.
would, of course, use English only, but then my students will be allowed to look things up and verify for themselves.
Definitely. That's very important. So they can be absolutely certain.
We also have encouraged other learners to support each other and use the moment to encourage students to learn how to look up a word.
Ah,
Yes, yes, that's very
that's
good.
that's another one. They don't
Yeah,
always know how to look up a word.
they don't, and they can ask each other. Like if you use English only and you have this like different kind of background group, maybe they can ask each other for verification, for help, and
they're very quick to jump in with the Spanish translation of something, and I know that, and so I say, okay, but please define this word in English.
yeah.
So that gets them, practicing their paraphrasing skills, and they have to think a little and struggle a bit.
Yeah, and this is actually what Elizabeth says in the next message. She says that there's an opportunity to demonstrate that it's okay not to know a word, to look up a word, to discuss the meaning of a word, and develop example sentences together. Yes,
Beautiful.
that's true. That's true. One thing that I also encourage, even though I'm okay with using first language in class, of course, I always try to say, well, if you don't know a word, how else could you say it? Do not stick, like, what I see if people use first language too much is that they have this one particular word that they came up with for this
Yes,
particular context, and they want to use it and nothing else, and but this will create these breakdowns that you mentioned
exactly.
during
So
conversation.
sometimes I say, do you have a synonym in your own language? And
Hmm.
sometimes that kind of unblocks something in their mind, and then they are able to come up with things or something in English. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's true. When
Yes.
they're so fixated on using only this word that they want to translate into English,
Yeah.
it often doesn't work.
Doesn't work. Yeah, learn to paraphrase, learn to walk around these little things that, well, there are so many different ways to say this idea to,
Exactly.
then yes, okay. We also have Adrian. Hello, from my experience, learning languages, a mixed approach to is good depending on the primary language. Yeah, absolutely. I guess if the primary language is similar to English, if we talk about European group of languages, I think with Spanish, English and Spanish share a lot of like similarities because they stem from, like, English is part Latin, obviously. Spanish
Exactly.
is part Latin too, so there it will be easier. If we talk about languages that are completely different, then it won't work, it won't help at all. We also have Sandra. I mainly teach one-on-one, and with low levels in particular, they sometimes double check. And when I realize they haven't got the right idea or when they simply isn't an equivalent, and it's about grasping concepts, I have to quickly
Yes.
explain it in language one, and it's a long sentence. Yes. What about for L1 between the students when help for them to work together and work out clarity together? I don't know. Do you encourage, if you teach groups, do you allow your students to speak Spanish with each other?
If I know that this group is struggles a lot with English, I may sometimes allow that. Yes, because if there's a task that they should complete, they can mix in some Spanish, of course.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay. Right. So we don't want in the stack of panic modes. Yeah, we don't want panic modes.
Yes, definitely. Oh my goodness.
Okay, okay. So moving on to this second part, right, where we talk about whether knowing your students' first language is important, and because everybody has this privilege of knowing their students' first language. So, how have you noticed that knowing Spanish has helped you teaching your students, particularly?
We've already touched on words, vocabulary. I also use cultural references sometimes to add some humor,
Hmm. Hmm.
quotes that are kind of part of the culture,
Yeah.
quotes from TV shows or films. Yeah, things like something from actually a few decades ago, aceptamos pulpo,
Yeah.
which means, okay, I'll let it pass. But when I use this expression, usually people kind of smile and it relaxes them a bit. Um, I also use, for example, when it comes to pronunciation, it
Hmm.
sometimes helps to make a connection to their own language.
Hmm.
The past simple of to see, saw.
Hmm.
The Spanish instinct is to pronounce every letter that they see written. So they usually say
So.
sao or
Uh-huh.
maybe so.
So.
And I say, so wait a moment. What do you say to a horse in Spanish when you want it to stop? there's an order that you give horses, which is saw.
Uh-huh.
And
Uh-huh.
that's
Uh-huh.
the one. That's the sound you're looking for. It's saw. And they
Yeah,
remember.
okay. Okay, so sort of like mnemonic or kind of
Yes, exactly. Or
approach.
month. Since there is an O in the letter, you see an O written, they will say month or mon,
Mm.
which is,
Mm.
mon is hard to understand. Month, okay. But
Yeah.
many people say mon because
Yeah.
they struggle with final consonants. So, okay,
Yeah.
so it's like, think of an apple in
Hmm.
Spanish, manzana. So it's the
Yeah.
first part of manzana. So
Yeah.
they are able to create some images in their heads, and
Right.
they
Okay,
remember.
so you will know basically how to help them remember things. You will throw in some different cultural tidbits into learning. But I think another important part of it is knowing what things your students will struggle with. Like you just mentioned, wait, expect, hope, and look forward to. If you didn't know Spanish, would you know that this is where your students could struggle because it's the same word in Spanish?
I might learn along the years that this
Yeah.
is a problem area, but knowing this, I'm especially alert.
Yeah. You
So
can
as soon as
prevent
I say, excuse me,
you can prevent the
yes, I
mistake from
can. I can
happening.
anticipate and predict and maybe
Yeah.
prevent things.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. So not knowing your student's first language, um you basically don't know. Sometimes they will keep making the same mistake and you wouldn't know why this is happening, and you wouldn't
Exactly.
be able to find the solution to this problem quickly enough just because you don't know why this is happening. And maybe it's happening because in their own language this is something that they don't have at all, or
That's
it's a
it.
similar thing.
I think it also, because sometimes you get irritated by
Yeah.
recurring mistakes. It's like, why would they? But knowing this, I know why they mix those verbs.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it can be a little irritating. It's like, why would they mix up these words? It's so obvious. But
Mhm.
no, it's not always obvious. You mentioned something about Russian, where hand and arm are the
Yes.
same. So people would say, hold my arm.
Yeah. 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 Hold my arm, or
This is, for me, this is inconceivable. But now that I know it, I'm completely fine with it, and I know what's going on.
yeah. And one other thing is that I hear this a lot being raised in different conversations like this. Is the fact that we have to move away from native speakerism and being too focused on the target language culture. And thus, knowing your students' culture, you can incorporate things that are important to them in learning. One thing that I always notice is when you talk about like holidays, Christmas, New Year. What kind of things do you discuss there? Do you discuss things like mistletoe, I don't know, sleigh, or is this something that your students are not familiar with, that they don't really need, or maybe they want to talk about their own traditions and cultures and how to describe the dishes that they make for these holidays if they celebrate them? And they have their own set of vocabulary that they might want to know and use,
Of
and if you to
course,
focus on the target culture, you will lose this
yes.
opportunity.
Yes, absolutely, because Christmas has specific elements which are very typical in Spain. So
Yeah.
they want to know how to say crib, or, you know, how to
Yeah.
say
This
turrón. So there, when it goes into food,
the
it's
nativity scene.
complicated.
I think nativity scenes are really
Exactly,
a huge
that's it.
thing in
They
Spain.
are, or certain foods which usually you can't translate.
I
They're very
actually have a
interesting.
kaganer ornament for a Christmas tree.
Yeah, exactly.
This the pooping man.
Oh,
Do you know what it is? The kaganer. It's
oh, the
part
caganer. Yes, that is
the caganer. I don't
specifically,
mispronounce.
that's a Catalan thing, the caganer.
Oh, it's a Catalan, yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so then what would you say to teachers who do not speak their students' first language? What would you recommend them?
Oh, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a moment.
Sure. No rush.
I think we've mentioned some of these. The internet nowadays. When I trained as a teacher, there was no internet yet.
Yeah.
But nowadays, I think I would definitely resort to Google or any other translation app.
Yeah.
And if communication broke down, I would also ask students to look it up and tell me in English.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what I would do.
And also, I think there are a lot of articles on, common mistakes Spanish speakers make in English, or common things Spanish speakers struggle when learning English. And just look these things up
Yes, exactly.
and prepare yourself. Even if you don't know the student's first
Oh,
language, you
so
can
you mean if
find,
I were somebody to teach a group of Spanish native speakers,
for
how could
example.
I? Yeah, definitely. I would investigate. I would do some research into what Spanish speakers struggle with.
Hmm.
Yeah, typical mistakes, pronunciation problems, all that.
Yeah. It's not only about teaching them about target culture, because I think today we're not really talking about target culture. We have global English, apart from British English or American English. We have global English, and there are, in reality, I don't think that a lot of our students will actually speak to native speakers. They will speak to people from other cultures. They will speak to people from other countries that
That's it.
where English is also not their first language.
Exactly. That's true. Yes.
Mm.
Mind you, a lot of cultural influences are found in vocabulary. American English is a lot about baseball,
Yeah.
idioms, and things like that. And that's culture, but I don't
Corporate
think
culture as well. That corporate culture has so many different
that's
idioms that
it
even I'm not
exactly.
even privy
But
to.
on the other hand, it's not a good idea to use these idioms because yeah, not everybody understands baseball.
Yeah. Yeah.
What
So
do I know about baseball?
invest in learning your students' culture and maybe incorporate that in the
Exactly.
lessons as well. Okay, I think this is where we can finish the conversation. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you
Thank
so
you,
much for
Maria.
sharing your thoughts.
Oh,
It
it was
was
so fun.
incredible to hear your perspective.
Absolutely. So enjoyable. Thank you so much.
Okay. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Okay, so this concludes today's live session. I hope you heard some interesting ideas, and I hope you, I don't know, got some interesting ideas that you can use in your own teaching. One more thing before we finish, I want to invite you to our next live session that is going to happen next Monday on April the 7th at 3 p.m. Central European Time, where Alexandra and I are going to talk about how to stay authentic on AI saturated social media. We're going to talk about the ways people overuse AI when they develop their personal brand online, how you can leverage these different tools and stay true to yourself, and also how, when you use this for teaching, for creating your own materials, you can also keep a personal touch and not just abuse all these different tools. So, a lot of different things we're going to discuss with Anna. So I hope you can join us too and share your own perspectives on this issue. So here's the QR code. You can scan it and sign up for our next live session. With this, I say goodbye to you all, and I hope to see you all on Monday. And I wish you a great